mystical island of Polados. Right, the internet gurus of Africa are meeting today, so it's a good time to take a stock on the impact of the media, internet and business. It's opening in Nairobi. We got 3 delegates to what's called AFRI-TECH together. Mark Kaigwa, social media consultant from Nairobi. Fady Ramzy, founder of Interact Egypt Social Media. And first off, Io Johnson, who is the head of media for AFRI-TECH. The World Today's Roger Hearing began by asking Io about Facebook and Twitter. We've seen how important they are in Egypt and Tunisia. What about elsewhere in Africa?
Well, I think they're crucial. The problem you got across Africa is that the broadband functionality and application is not really truly available. So for many communities in Africa, they're not being able to use the internet as quickly and as fast and to be able to engage with these outlets. I think as a whole, West Africa, East Africa would have moved as quickly as North Africa if the infrastructures were there, if the society was better accustomed to the technology. But what we're seeing in Kenya, as I've seen firsthand, is that the society here has really changed, where everyone has a mobile phone. Everyone is looking to have the most latest technological applications within that mobile phone. What we see in Kenya, if that's the blueprint for the rest of Africa, then Africa is going to change so quickly that people are not going to realize that it's happening as quickly as it is.
Well, it's interesting you're talking there about everyone has this, everyone has that. Now, Fady, I know that the social media has played a huge part in North Africa, particularly in what's been happening. But are we talking about two sorts of people here? Because certainly in Britain and the West, there are some of the older people who get involved in this kind of thing, but not everyone. And I'd imagine that must be the same where you are. Is this the young who are using these new tools?
Well, I agree with you for sure. The youth, let's say, starting with 20 till 38 or 40, this is the larger chunk of people using social networks. But the interesting note here to mention is that Africa is the most dynamic content over Facebook at the moment, with more than 50% of the users, they joined Facebook in the last 6 months.
Nayo, is it changing society as well? Because I was talking about the young and the old, but of course there are lots of groups in traditional society who don't really talk to each other very much, men and women, I suppose, rich and poor, educated, uneducated. Is it bringing people together more, do you think?
The trends are that it is, because people are communicating more. And it's also being shown that from an economical perspective, people can get their goods to the market quicker, they can understand what's happening far quicker in the marketplace for them to be able to engage with it and to be able to get out a profit.
Mark, there's an interesting question at the heart of this, which is it yet another trend that Africa just jumps on the back of and uses, or is it something where Africa can partly lead the way? I mean, is there initiative, entrepreneurship?
Yes, I think that's the essence of what this develops and sparks off in each of these respective nations across Africa. It's hard to really, it's a challenge to canvas across the continent and give, the bigger picture, but in each respective corner and country, there's very unique things happening within the scope of social networking, within the scope of mobile.
Now, to end with, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you each to look ahead into the future. Now, if we were talking 10 years from now and looking at the way communications are in Africa, what do you think we're going to see? Aya, let me come to you first.
I think we will see women being empowered, having better control. We would see communities being far more coordinated in their activities, especially to do with family life and their interaction with the communities, and very much so with businesses. The question is, if this development leads to the changes that we've seen in the developed world, where communities sort of shun away from communities because of technological advancements. As we know, in the developed world, it is not uncommon for teenagers, for young people to be marooned in their rooms and in their little environments away from the rest of the world, thinking that is the real world. So it remains to be seen whether Africa would become like that.
It sounds extremely unlikely, doesn't it, from what I know of Africa anyway, certainly in Africans. But Fady, what do you think looking ahead?
Well, I'm quite optimistic, especially for goods that doesn't need shipping. For example, the music industry. Africa is very, very rich in music. So if you have the music soft over your computer, and you can start doing business, you don't need anything except a computer and internet. So if you really utilize it, the economy grows, I would say, with the individuals, with the small companies, and for sure with the large brands.
Now, Mark, I was in Nairobi 10 years ago, and I have to say, even getting the internet was quite a struggle. Let's look 10 years from now. What's Nairobi going to be like?
I think, in a word, it can be summed up in mobile. So mobile innovation, and I think the world is going to look to Africa, and specifically somewhere like Kenya, given how far it's come in those 10 years, like you said, Roger. And now we're going to look forward and see how it transforms the way the world and emerging markets starting there, how they do business, how they think of the power that's held with people or mass who hold mobile phones. I think it'll transform business, social lives, social networking, and governance. I wouldn't be surprised that in 10 years, government starts seriously considering a minister for mobile.
The world changes fast in Africa. Marking AFRI-TECH, 3 of the delegates, Mark Kaigwa, Fady Ramzy and Io Johnson, speaking to The World Today's Roger Hearing. This has been The World Today and will be too, so stay listening. News Bulletin coming up next.